U.S. soccer journalist Grant Wahl died while covering the World Cup in Qatar, and his brother announced the death of the 48-year-old journalist on Friday night. Here with me to talk about Wahl's impact and the loss for the soccer community is NYCFC broadcaster Glenn Crooks. Glenn, how's it going?
Well, it was such shocking news. I had a friend text to me last night, and it's been hard to get it off my mind. Went and watched Morocco, Portugal, but maybe not with the same enthusiasm and passion this time because the thoughts of Grant are still lingering. I mean, this guy just a giant in our community and a lovely guy, obviously well read and well known in the soccer community. And for it to happen at such a young age, 48, that's one thing that you think about. But also knowing that I was in Qatar and also sat next to Grant for all the games I covered in the group stage before I came home, and just to know that it happened in in the stadium and at the game, and the trauma and the necessary medical attention, and it's just hard to get that picture out of your mind, and then ultimately his family, Celine Grounder, who we all know so well from her contributions during COVID, and honestly a real power couple, but humble and giving, and it's a really tough day for soccer.
Yeah, tough day for soccer, and it's why we wanted to speak to you, Glenn, because you knew Grant a bit, and you mentioned you even saw him in Qatar when you were covering the U.S. men's national team. We, as a journalistic community, we know him through his writing, but what was he like as a person?
Well, for me, I first met him. We co-hosted a couple of shows at Sirius XMFC in 2015, I believe, and that's where I first met him. I knew of him. He didn't really know me, but when I told him I had coached at Rutgers University and had coached Carly Lloyd, he lit up a bit and then understood that we had a connection because he was such an advocate for the women's game, which interested me because I've been involved in the women's game as a coach since the early 80s. So his fight for the equal rights, and he was very opinionated, but it was always with an educated eye. So I always appreciated Grant. And the other side of it was I was just starting in a new career in broadcasting, and I was writing at the time too. So I would send him things that I would write, and he would look them over and provide feedback. And certainly a guy that is involved in so much as he was, that sort of thing is what you can really take away. And that kind, gentle Midwest kind of guy.
Yeah, and I always got the sense, Glenn, that through his work that he was definitely passionate about the growth of the sport, particularly in this country. But what kind of impact did Grant have on soccer in the United States?
Well, look, he was a student at Princeton when Bob Bradley was coaching there, and that's kind of how he got his initiation and developed his passion. Bob Bradley, he's always been this total football soccer guy. Every moment of his life is dedicated to it, and he brought Grant into his realm, and Grant went to Buenos Aires to observe some soccer in Argentina and write about it there. And the next thing you know, he's with Sports Illustrated, and he's been covering the game since 1996, and that's the beginning of Major League Soccer. And so he was there for the early stages of that and describing all those particular things. So it's just he's and it's global. It's domestic. It's the stories in very local communities, both in the States and abroad. So it's just a really nice picture that he drew about our sport. And I think it was very important because so many people read his stuff, and so many people were influenced by what he wrote.
Definitely. And lastly, Glenn, I would have to ask you this. I think when we talk about anybody that is no longer here with us, we talk about legacy. What would you say Grant Wall's legacy is for American soccer fans?
Well, Luis Miguel, a guy who he did podcasts with and was very close with, I think put it best. And he said that Grant was a champion of humanity. And I think that is his legacy, that there wasn't a social topic that he wouldn't cover. And he covered it with zest, zeal, truthfulness, openness, and he really had no fear of repercussions because he was critical of U.S. soccer during the women's fight for equal pay and equal rights. And we've seen some of his work leading into the World Cup in Qatar, and he going on his own dime to Qatar early so that he had a chance to speak with migrant workers one on one to get an idea of what their situation was and tell us the truth. So I think that really is his legacy, is that he was there in all aspects of the game, but for the most important things, the things that impacted our lives.
Definitely a great impact on the soccer community, the sports journalism community. Grant Wahl gone too early at the age of 48. That is Glenn Crooks, NYC FC broadcaster. Glenn, we thank you. We appreciate your words and perspective on the life of Grant Wahl. Thank you so much.